If your mother looked you dead in the eye on your 18th birthday and said, "We're not wasting another dime on you," while your younger sister opened a brand new MacBook Pro at the same dinner table, would you still show up 10 years later when that sister needed you to save her life? Would you answer that phone call at 2 a.m., knowing they never once answered yours? My name is Claire Donovan, and if you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. I read every single comment. That phone call came on a Thursday. Private number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. A voice I hadn't heard in a decade. Thin. Shaking. "Claire, it's Mom. Your sister needs a kidney. You're the only match." 10 years of nothing. And that was how they reached out. Let me take you back to where it started. Back to the kitchen table in our 3-bedroom house in Richmond, Virginia, where my father decided my future over reheated lasagna. I was 17 when I first brought up college. Not Harvard, not Stanford, just Virginia Commonwealth University, 20 minutes from home. I had a 3.8 gigapascals. I'd been on honor roll since 6th grade. I'd saved $1,100 from babysitting and working weekends at a pet grooming shop. I laid the brochure on the table between the salt shaker and my father's beer. VCU has a nursing program. I could commute from home to save on housing. Dad didn't look at the brochure. He looked at Mom. Mom looked at her plate. My sister Megan, 15 at the time, kept scrolling her phone like I wasn't even there. "Claire." Dad's voice had that tone. The closing a door tone. "Your mother and I talked about this. College isn't in the cards for you. But Megan's fund. Megan is different." Mom said it like she was telling me water was wet. "She has the personality for it. She's going to do great things." Megan's personality, for the record, was getting suspended twice for cheating on tests and convincing our parents both times that the teachers had it out for her. Her GPA was a 2.4, but she had blonde hair like Mom, played volleyball, and laughed at Dad's jokes. I had dark hair, kept to myself, and once made the mistake of correcting Dad's math on a tax return. He never forgave me for being right. "I'll pay for most of it myself," I tried. "I just need help with the application fees. And maybe the first semester." "You heard your father." Mom started clearing plates, even though I hadn't finished eating. "Be realistic, Claire. Not everyone is college material. You could get your CNA certification. There's nothing wrong with honest work." Nothing wrong with honest work. She said that while wearing the necklace, Dad bought her with the money from Megan's volleyball tournament fundraiser. The one I'd organized, by the way. Every spreadsheet, every phone call to local businesses for donations. Megan got the trophy. I got a pat on the head and told to clean up the gym. That night I heard them in the living room. Dad was on the phone with a financial advisor. "Yeah, we want to lock in the 529 plan for our daughter. She's starting to look at schools. UVA. Maybe William and Mary. One daughter. They always said it that way. Not our younger daughter or Megan. Just our daughter. Like there was only one." I pressed my ear against my bedroom wall, the wall I shared with Megan's room, and heard her FaceTiming her friend. "My parents said they're budgeting like $80,000 for my college. I'm gonna rush a sorority." Can you imagine? $80,000. I'd asked for help with a $400 application fee. The pattern had been there my whole life. I'd just been too stubborn to stop hoping it would change. When Megan made the varsity volleyball team, they threw a barbecue and invited the whole neighborhood. When I won a regional science fair, Mom said, "That's nice, honey," and went back to watching Real Housewives. Megan got driving lessons at 15 and a half. I took the bus until I could afford a used bike from a yard sale. Megan's room got redecorated every year. Mine still had the wallpaper from when the previous owners had a nursery. The worst part wasn't the inequality. It was the gaslighting. "We treat you girls exactly the same," Mom would say whenever I brought it up, standing in Megan's freshly painted room while mine had a leak stain on the ceiling they'd been meaning to fix for 3 years. "You're just jealous of your sister," Dad would add. "That's not attractive, Claire." The breaking point came 3 months after that kitchen table conversation. I found a full-ride nursing scholarship through a local hospital foundation. Every cost covered. Tuition, books, housing stipend. All I needed was a parental income verification form. One signature. I brought the paperwork to Dad on a Sunday morning. He was watching football. Megan curled up next to him, sharing a bowl of popcorn like a Norman Rockwell painting. "It's free," I said. "Completely free. You just have to sign this form confirming your income." He took the paper, read it for maybe 4 seconds, set it on the coffee table under his beer. "We're not putting our financial information on some form so you can play nurse. It's a scholarship, Dad. A real one. Claire, drop it." Mom appeared in the doorway. "You're ruining everyone's Sunday." Megan smirked. "Maybe you could be a dog groomer full-time. You already smell like one." They laughed. All 3 of them. That sound, that 3-person chorus of laughter at my expense, still echoes in my head sometimes late at night. I waited until they were all asleep. I packed one duffel bag. 17 years in that house, and everything that mattered to me fit in a single bag. I left my key on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "Being realistic. Don't worry about me." You never did. Mom found the note in the morning. She texted me once, "Don't be dramatic. You'll be back by Wednesday." I never went back. The first year almost killed me. And I mean that closer to literally than I'd like to admit. I took a Greyhound to Charlotte, North Carolina. Far enough to start over, close enough that the accent wouldn't feel foreign. I had $1,400 from the grooming shop and babysitting. First month's rent on a room above a laundromat took $800. The room had a radiator that clanked all night, a window that didn't lock, and a bathroom shared with 2 other tenants who both worked night shifts and took 40-minute showers at 6 a.m. I got a job waitressing at a diner 6 blocks away, then a second job cleaning office buildings from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., then a weekend gig doing data entry for a real estate office that paid cash under the table. 3 jobs. 4 hours of sleep. Ramen noodles for dinner 5 nights a week. Peanut butter sandwiches the other 2. I missed my 18th birthday. I mean, I was alive for it, but nobody knew. I sat on my mattress on the floor, ate a gas station cupcake, and cried until the frosting got salty. Then I set my alarm for 5 a.m. and went back to work. Meanwhile, Megan's Instagram was a highlight reel of everything I'd never have. Orientation day at UVA in a sundress Dad bought her. Sorority bid day with Mom flying in for the celebration. Spring break in Cancun. Best parents ever captions under photos of them all smiling on the quad. I checked her page maybe once a month. Torture, but I couldn't stop. I needed to see the life they'd paid for, the one they told me I didn't deserve. Year 2. I discovered community college night classes. $50 a credit if you qualified for the hardship waiver. I qualified. I started taking pre-nursing courses 2 nights a week after my diner shift. I'd sit in class with coffee stains on my uniform, fighting to stay awake, while 18-year-olds around me complained about their parents not upgrading their phone plans. Year 3. I got pneumonia. December in Charlotte without health insurance. I ignored the cough for 2 weeks because I couldn't afford to miss shifts. When I finally collapsed at the diner, my manager called an ambulance. The ER bill was $4,000. My savings account had $600. I did something I swore I'd never do. I called home. Mom answered on the 5th ring. "Claire, is that you? I'm in the hospital. I have pneumonia, and I can't." "Oh, honey." A pause. I heard the TV in the background. "Are you asking us for money? Because your father and I discussed this. We agreed that." "I'm asking for help. I'm really sick." Another pause. Longer this time. Then, "Megan just got accepted to the nursing program at UVA. Isn't that funny? She's going to be a nurse too. Well, a real one, with a real degree. I'm sure you'll figure things out, Claire. You always land on your feet." She hung up. Megan was going into nursing now. My dream. The one they said wasn't worth paying for. Suddenly, it was worth $80,000 when it was Megan's idea. I lay in that hospital bed and made a decision. Not a revenge decision. A survival decision. I would never call that number again. Whatever I built from here, I'd build without them. Not to prove them wrong, but because I finally understood they were never going to see me. Not as their daughter, not as a person worth investing in. I was invisible to them, and no amount of success would change that. But I was wrong about that last part. I met James Ellison in the most unglamorous way possible. I was mopping the floor of the medical office building I cleaned at night, and he was the last doctor still working at 11 p.m., typing notes in an exam room with the door open. "That floor's been clean for 10 minutes, he said without looking up. "You're stress mopping. Is that a clinical term?" He laughed. Actually laughed. Not at me. With me. I'd forgotten what that sounded like. James was finishing his residency in internal medicine. His family ran a chain of urgent care clinics across the Carolinas. Ellison Health Partners. You've probably seen the signs if you've driven through Charlotte or Raleigh. He was the youngest of 3 brothers, the only one who actually wanted to practice medicine instead of just managing the business. We started talking at night when our schedules overlapped. He'd bring me coffee from the break room. I'd tell him about my nursing classes. He never asked why I was cleaning offices at midnight while studying for anatomy exams. He just saw someone working hard and respected it. "You understand patient flow better than half the residents I work with," he told me one night, watching me reorganize the supply closet I was supposed to just dust. "The way you mapped out that inventory system is basically what hospitals pay consultants 6 figures to do." "I just hate waste," I said. "When you've counted every dollar, watching people throw away supplies because the storage system is stupid makes you crazy." "That's not crazy. That's operational intelligence." He paused. "Have you ever thought about healthcare administration?" I hadn't. Nursing was the dream. But James planted a seed that night, and it grew faster than either of us expected. He introduced me to his mother, Diana Ellison, who ran the business side of the family clinics. She was terrifying in the best way. 5'2", silver hair, read 3 newspapers every morning, and could negotiate a vendor contract with the precision of a surgeon. "James says you reorganized an entire supply chain in your head while mopping," she said at our first dinner. "I'd like to see what you could do with an actual budget." She offered me a paid internship at Ellison Health Partners, Operations Department. $22 an hour, more than my 3 jobs combined. Benefits included. If you've ever had one person believe in you when your whole family didn't, you know what that feels like. It's terrifying because hope is the most dangerous thing when you've learned to live without it. I need to stop here for a second. If you've ever been the invisible child in your family, the one they overlooked, underfunded, or flat out forgot, drop a comment below. Tell me your story. I read every single one. And your words help other people realize they're not alone. And if this is hitting close to home, please subscribe. It genuinely helps me keep sharing these stories. Now let me tell you how I went from mopping floors to running them. I didn't just meet the internship expectations. I redesigned their entire patient intake system within 6 months. Wait times dropped by 35%. Patient satisfaction scores went up 20 points. Diana promoted me to operations manager before my internship technically ended. I finished my bachelor's degree at UNC Charlotte, part-time, while working full-time, not summa cum laude, not with honors, a 3. 4 gigapascals earned on 4 hours of sleep and sheer stubbornness. No empty chairs at my graduation because I didn't invite anyone. James came anyway. Diana brought flowers. James proposed on a rainy Tuesday in the parking lot of the clinic where we'd met. No ring at first. He'd spent his savings helping a patient cover surgery costs and was waiting for his next paycheck. I said yes before he finished the sentence. His family didn't just welcome me. They absorbed me. His brothers called me sis within a month. Diana started every Monday morning meeting with, "Claire, what did you fix this weekend?" His father, Robert Sr., a quiet man who preferred fishing to boardrooms, once told me at Thanksgiving, "You remind me of my mother. She built things that lasted." Nobody in that family ever asked where I came from. They only cared about where I was going. James and I got married at the courthouse. 14 people. Sandwiches from a deli afterward. Diana insisted on paying for a cake. It was the best day of my life because every person in that room actually wanted to be there. Within 3 years, I'd been promoted twice. Director of Operations for all 9 Ellison clinics. I'd implemented a digital record system that saved the company $1.2 million in its first year. When the Regional Hospital Association gave out their efficiency award, Diana made me accept it on stage. "This is Claire Ellison," she told the audience. "She's the reason our clinics run. And she started by mopping our floors." I didn't correct her last name. She'd been calling me Ellison since before the wedding. I let it stick. Meanwhile, I never Googled my family. I never checked Megan's Instagram. I kept that door welded shut for 10 years. Whatever was happening in Richmond existed in a universe I'd left behind. Then came the phone call. "Claire, it's Mom. Your sister needs a kidney. You're the only match." 2 in the morning. I was sitting in my home office reviewing next quarter's expansion plans. James was asleep upstairs. 9 Ellison clinics were about to become 14. We just signed a partnership with a regional hospital network. I had a staff of 60 people who depended on me, and my mother's voice sounded exactly the same. That slightly annoyed tone, like my existence was an interruption to her real life. "How did you get this number?" "Your cousin Emma found you online." "Claire, this is serious. Megan has kidney failure. Stage 4. She's been on dialysis for 8 months. The transplant list is years long, and the family got tested. You're the only sibling match." "I'm the only sibling, period." The words came out harder than I intended. "Please, whatever happened between us?" "What happened between us is you told me I wasn't worth a $400 application fee." Silence. "She could die, Claire." I didn't sleep that night. James found me at the kitchen table at dawn, staring at my cold coffee. "Who called?" I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, which is what good partners do. Then he said, "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But you should have all the information before you decide anything." He was right. So I did my research. Through a doctor friend, I learned that Megan's kidney failure was partly genetic, partly lifestyle. She'd been diagnosed 2 years earlier but had ignored medical advice, missed appointments, continued drinking heavily at what sounded like a nonstop social life. The genetic component meant I was at slightly elevated risk myself, a fact my parents had never bothered to warn me about, despite knowing for 2 years. 2 years. They'd known for 2 years that I might carry the same condition. They said nothing. Not a call, not a letter, not even through cousin Emma. They only reached out when they needed something from me. I also learned something else. Megan had dropped out of UVA's nursing program after 1 semester. She'd switched to communications, then to undeclared, then took a gap year that turned into 3. She eventually got a degree in general studies from an online program. She was working part-time as a receptionist at a dermatology office. The $80,000 investment had produced a $26,000 a year job. Not that there's anything wrong with that work, but it puts things in perspective when your parents said one daughter had potential and the other didn't. I decided to go to Richmond. Not for my parents. For myself. And maybe, honestly, because I couldn't live with the alternative. Whatever they'd done to me, Megan was still my sister. James drove. 3 hours on I-85, mostly in silence. He held my hand over the center console. "You don't have to prove anything to them," he said as we crossed the Virginia state line. "I know." "Then why are you shaking?" "Because 10 years disappear the second you turn onto your childhood street. Because trauma doesn't care about your title or your salary or your 14-clinic empire. Because the 17-year-old girl with the duffel bag is still in there somewhere, terrified she's not enough." We pulled up to the house. Smaller than I remembered, the paint was peeling. The yard Dad used to keep military precise had dandelions pushing through the walkway. Mom opened the door before I knocked. She looked older, thinner. Her eyes went past me and landed on James, then on the car, a new Lexus SUV, then on my clothes. I wasn't wearing anything flashy, just a good blazer, nice jeans, the simple gold necklace James gave me for our anniversary, but I could see her calculating. "You look, well, The word cost her something. "Where's Megan?" She led us inside. The house smelled the same. Pine sol and cinnamon candles. Megan's volleyball trophies still lined the hallway. My science fair plaque was not there. It had never been there. Megan was in the living room. She was thin, grayish skin, dark circles that no amount of concealer could hide. A dialysis port visible under her collarbone. She looked 40, not 28. She stared at me and started crying immediately. "You came." "I came." Dad was in his recliner. He stood when he saw me, and for a second I thought he might hug me. Instead, he extended his hand for a handshake, like I was a business associate. "Claire." That flat voice. "This is?" "My husband, James." "Husband?" Mom's eyebrows shot up. "You got married and didn't tell us?" "You didn't tell me about Megan's diagnosis for 2 years, or that I might carry the same genetic marker. I think we're even on withholding information." The room went quiet. Dad sat back down. Mom started fidgeting with her rings. "Let's talk about the kidney," James said, because he always knows how to redirect a room. The medical details were straightforward. Megan needed a living donor kidney. I was a blood type and tissue match. The surgery had good outcomes but real risks: 4 to 6 weeks recovery, potential complications, the permanent reality of living with one kidney. "The doctors say the sooner the better," Mom pressed. "She's deteriorating." "I understand the timeline." "So you'll do it?" Dad's tone was less question, more assumption, like signing the FAFSA form. "Just a formality." "I didn't say that." The air changed. "She's your sister," Dad said slowly. "She is. And you're my parents. But none of you treated me like family for the first 18 years of my life, or the 10 years after that. This isn't the time for grudges, Claire." Mom's voice had that old edge. The one that meant shut up and comply. "It's not a grudge. It's a fact. You refused to sign a scholarship form. You laughed at me. You told me I wasn't college material while paying $80,000 for Megan to drop out. And when I was in the hospital with pneumonia, you hung up on me." Megan looked at Mom. "You told me she didn't call." The silence after that sentence lasted about 5 years' worth of truth. "What?" I said. "Mom told me you never called. She said you cut us off completely, that you were too proud to reach out." Megan's voice cracked. "I didn't know she hung up on you." Mom's face went through 4 colors. White, pink, red, white again. "I was protecting you from getting hurt by her." "Protecting me?" Megan's voice rose. "You told me my sister didn't want anything to do with me. For 10 years. Your sister left," Dad said, crossing his arms. "She chose to leave. Because you chose to keep me out." My voice was steady. I'd practiced this moment in my head for a decade. I didn't leave the family. I left a house where I wasn't considered part of one. James's hand found my lower back. Steady. Warm. Megan was shaking. "I called you. I called your old number. They canceled my phone line 2 days after I left," I said. "I found out when I tried to call." "Never mind. We reallocated the plan," Dad said, like it was a budget meeting. Megan needed more data. The absurdity of that sentence sat in the room like a guest nobody invited. "I'm going to step outside," James said calmly. "Claire, take your time." He stopped in the doorway and looked at my father. "Mr. Donovan, your daughter is the most remarkable person I've ever met. She built a career from nothing. She runs 9 medical clinics. 60 people depend on her every day. And she drove 3 hours to be here because despite everything you did, she's still a better person than you deserve to raise." He walked out. The front door clicked shut. For the first time in my life, I saw my father look small. "Medical clinics?" Mom's voice wavered. "I'm the director of operations for Ellison Health Partners." "Ellison?" Dad sat up straighter. "The urgent care chain?" "That's one of the largest private healthcare networks in the Carolinas." "It is. We see those clinics everywhere," Megan whispered. "You work there?" "I run them." Dad's mouth opened and closed. I could see him recalculating everything. The daughter who wasn't college material running a multi-million-dollar healthcare operation. The daughter who couldn't even be a nurse building systems that nurses depended on daily. How? Mom's question was barely audible. I mopped floors. Then I organized supply closets. Then I redesigned patient intake systems. Then I got my degree while working 60-hour weeks. Nobody handed me anything. Nobody signed a form for me. I built every single piece of it myself. We didn't know, Mom started. You didn't ask. Not once in 10 years. Not a single call, email, text, letter. You knew I existed. You just didn't care until you needed a body part. Megan flinched. I felt it too. The words were true but heavy. Claire, I'm sorry. Megan said it first. Not Mom, not Dad. The sick sister in the gray skin with the dialysis port. I was a brat. I knew they treated you differently, and I let them because it benefited me. I'm sorry. I believed her. Partly because she was sick and scared, partly because she was crying in a way I'd never seen from her. Not the performative tears she used to get out of trouble. Real ones. Ugly ones. I didn't come here for an apology, I said. I came to look you all in the eye and make a decision based on who you are now, not who you were. And, Dad's voice cracked. For the first time, it cracked. I'll get tested again. I'll consult with my own doctors. If the surgery is safe for me, I'll consider it. But I have conditions. Conditions? Dad's old authority flickered. You're putting conditions on your sister's life? No, I'm putting conditions on my involvement with this family. The kidney is a medical decision between me and my doctors and Megan. The conditions are about everything else. I told them. Full transparency about all family medical history going forward. No more lies about who called or didn't call. Megan gets actual support for her recovery, not just surface-level coddling. And if I do this, they acknowledge what happened. Not to me. To a family therapist. All four of us. Therapy? Dad said it like I'd suggested a séance. Robert. Mom put her hand on his arm. The first time I'd seen her push back on him. Shut up. The room went quiet again. Okay, Dad said finally. Like the air went out of him. I had the surgery 7 weeks later. 16 hours at Duke University Medical Center. James sat in the waiting room for every minute. Diana flew in from Charlotte. My father-in-law brought sandwiches nobody ate. My parents were there too. Sitting on the other side of the waiting room. Close, but not close. Which felt about right. Recovery was harder than I expected. 6 weeks off work. Diana ran the clinics. James took leave to be my full-time caretaker. He made terrible soup and even worse jokes, and I loved him for every minute of it. Megan's body accepted the kidney. Her color came back within days. I watched through a FaceTime call from my own hospital bed as she stood up without help for the first time in months. Thank you was all she said. But the way she said it carried everything. The therapy started 2 months later. It was awful, the way therapy should be when there's real work to do. Dad sat stiff as a board for the first 3 sessions. Mom cried through the 4th. Megan brought a list of things she remembered that I'd blocked out, moments of favoritism she'd witnessed and never questioned. I wore the homecoming dress they told you was too expensive, she said in session 5. It was $200. They told you they couldn't afford a $40 prom ticket. I didn't know that. I thought I knew every slight, every gap. But there were layers even I hadn't seen. Dad finally broke in session 7. Not dramatically. He just stopped mid-sentence, put his face in his hands, and said, I don't know why I did it. She was easier. Megan was easier, and I chose easier. Every time. It wasn't an excuse. The therapist made sure he knew that. But it was honest. And honesty was something that family had been bankrupt on for 30 years. It's been 2 years since the surgery. Megan is healthy, working full-time now at a pediatric clinic, ironically through one of the Ellison partner networks. She's studying for her RN certification at night. Real classes, real exams. She texts me study questions sometimes. My parents and I aren't fixed. We might never be. But we're in the same room every other month, saying true things instead of comfortable ones. Dad came to an Ellison Company event last spring. He stood in the back, watching me give a keynote to 200 employees. Afterward, he found me in the hallway. "I was wrong about you." 4 words. They cost him everything. "I know," I said. And I meant it without cruelty. James and I started a scholarship fund. $10,000 a year for first-generation college students whose families won't fill out the FAFSA. We call it the Late Bloomer Grant. 12 recipients so far. Every single one of them reminds me that potential doesn't expire just because the people closest to you can't see it. If you're the child who got less, the one they didn't invest in, the one they forgot at the ceremony, I want you to know something. Their inability to see your worth says everything about their vision and nothing about your value. You don't owe them your success. You don't owe them your organs, honestly. But you do owe yourself the chance to become who you were supposed to be, without their permission and without their approval. Build your life. Choose your people. And if the family who failed you ever comes back asking for grace, you get to decide how much you give, not out of obligation, out of who you've become. That's the real revenge. Not proving them wrong, just outgrowing the box they built for you. If this story hit home, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family who didn't value you? What happened when you finally said enough? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear tonight. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one.